Chaplain Michael Reeves wore his uniform differently than other officers. No combat patches. No unit awards from previous assignments. Just the chaplain's cross and his basic service ribbons. Some soldiers wondered why. Most assumed he'd been support his entire career. Someone who joined as a chaplain and never saw combat. They were wrong. In a locked footlocker in Chaplain Reeves's quarters sat a different uniform. One with a Ranger tab, a Combat Infantryman Badge, deployment patches from Iraq and Afghanistan. Awards that told a story of a very different kind of service. Reeves never wore that uniform. Never spoke about those deployments. He left that life behind when he found his faith. But he kept the uniform because part of him knew that someday he might need to remember who he'd been. That day came when Forward Operating Base Caliban's defenses collapsed. The battalion commander was killed, and someone needed to organize a defense that kept 800 soldiers alive. The chaplain would have to become the Ranger again, just for one night, just long enough to save everyone. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Acts of Veterans so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Michael Reeves had wanted to be a soldier from the moment he could walk. Growing up in Georgia, near Fort Benning, he'd watched Rangers train, seen them run, seen the discipline and precision that made them the Army's elite. He enlisted at 18, infantry. Within 2 years, he'd earned his Ranger tab. By 23, he was a lieutenant leading a Ranger platoon in Iraq. He was good at it, very good, tactical, calm under pressure, the kind of officer his men trusted completely. Over 7 years and 3 deployments, Captain Michael Reeves built a reputation. Urban combat specialist, close quarters battle expert. He led missions in Fallujah, Ramadi, Baghdad, later in Afghanistan, Kandahar, Helmand Province. His platoon had never lost a man under his command, not one. His superiors talked about him as a future battalion commander, maybe more, but something was happening inside Michael that nobody could see. Each deployment took something from him. Each firefight, each kill, each moment of violence wore away pieces of who he was. He never showed it. Rangers didn't break. Rangers completed the mission. Michael completed every mission perfectly, but by his 3rd deployment, he was waking up at night seeing faces, hearing sounds, replaying moments where he'd made split-second decisions that ended lives. He wasn't suffering from PTSD, not clinically. He was just tired. Tired of killing. Tired of war. Tired of being good at something that required destroying other people. When his 3rd deployment ended, Michael requested a stateside assignment. Training. Anything away from combat. What he found instead was God. It started with a chaplain who noticed Michael sitting alone in the base chapel. The chaplain didn't preach, didn't push, just sat beside him and asked if he wanted to talk. Michael talked for hours about the weight, about the faces he couldn't forget, about feeling like he'd lost something essential in himself. The chaplain listened, then said something that changed everything. You've been a warrior. That's honorable, but maybe God has a different kind of service for you. One that builds instead of destroys. Over the next 2 years, Michael pursued chaplaincy. He went to seminary, studied theology, worked through his trauma with the help of faith and counseling. He didn't regret his service as a Ranger. He was proud of what he'd done, but he'd found a new calling, a way to serve that felt like healing instead of hurting. When he returned to the Army as Chaplain Captain Michael Reeves, he made a deliberate choice. He wouldn't talk about his Ranger background, wouldn't let it define him. He was a man of God now, not a warrior. Forward Operating Base Caliban was in eastern Afghanistan, near the Pakistan border, a volatile region with constant Taliban activity. Chaplain Reeves had been assigned there for 18 months. He counseled soldiers, led worship services, provided comfort to those struggling with the stress of deployment. He was well liked. Soldiers appreciated his calm presence, his willingness to listen without judgment, his ability to find hope even in difficult situations. Nobody asked about his past. His personnel file listed his previous assignments as redacted due to the classified nature of Ranger operations. Most people assumed he'd been a support officer who happened to have clearance for sensitive information. Reeves preferred it that way. The less people knew about Captain Michael Reeves the Ranger, the more they'd trust Chaplain Michael Reeves the man of faith. But there were moments when the old training surfaced. During a mortar attack, while other soldiers panicked, Reeves's voice cut through the chaos with tactical precision, moved to hardened positions. Stay low, cover, and movement. During a medical emergency, when a soldier was choking, Reeves performed a perfect tactical, combat casualty care procedure that most chaplains wouldn't know. Small things easily dismissed. But they added up for those paying attention. Lieutenant Sarah Chen noticed. She came to Reeves one afternoon for counseling. Her platoon was preparing for a difficult mission, and she was struggling with fear. During their conversation, she mentioned something. "Chaplain, you move differently than other support officers, like you've been in combat." Reeves paused. "I have? Really? Where?" Reeves considered how much to share. "Iraq, Afghanistan, a long time ago." "What did you do?" "Infantry." Chen studied him. "Just infantry?" Reeves smiled slightly. "Is there just about infantry?" Chen didn't push, but she filed the information away. The chaplain wasn't who everyone thought he was. The attack came on March 7th at 2100 hours. Chaplain Reeves was in his quarters, reading his Bible before sleep, when the first explosion shook the base. Not mortars, bigger, breaching charges on the perimeter wall. He grabbed his gear flak vest, helmet. Sidearm man moved toward the door. Training from 15 years ago flooded back instantly. Outside, chaos reigned. Multiple explosions, gunfire from every direction, soldiers running without coordination, the base alarm shrieking into the night. Reeves moved toward the TOC Tactical Operations Center to understand the situation. What he found was devastation. A rocket-propelled grenade had hit the TOC directly. The building was partially collapsed. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, was dead. The executive officer was critically wounded. The operations officer was missing. The remaining senior leadership company commanders and staff were scattered across the base. Trying to organize defenses without central coordination, the enemy had planned this perfectly. Decapitate leadership, create chaos, breach from multiple directions. 800 soldiers on Forward Caliban were fighting without anyone in overall command. Reeves found Captain Lisa Martinez, a company commander, trying to coordinate with her lieutenants via radio. "Captain, what's the situation?" Martinez looked at him, stress written across her face. "Chaplain, we're being hit from 3 directions. Colonel Hayes is dead. Nobody knows who's in command. Every company is fighting independently. We're not coordinated. Where's the next senior officer?" "Major Ross is at the 8th station. He's the ranking officer now, but he's a logistics officer. No combat experience." Reeves made a decision in that moment, a decision that went against everything he'd built over the past 15 years. "Captain Martinez, I need you to trust me. Get on the radio and tell every unit to switch to the alternate command net. I'm taking tactical command until we stabilize." Martinez stared at him. "Chaplain, you can't." "Captain, I was a ranger for 7 years, 3 combat deployments. I've done this before. Right now, we need someone who knows how to coordinate a defense under fire." "That's me." Martinez processed this information in half a second. Outside, gunfire was intensifying. Soldiers were dying. "Okay, do it." Reeves grabbed a radio from a fallen communications specialist. "Switch to the alternate net. All units, this is Caliban Actual. I am assuming tactical command. Acknowledged by company." There was a pause. Then, one by one, the company commanders checked in. "Alpha Company, Roger. Bravo Company, Roger. Charlie Company, Chaplain Reeves. Yes, I'll explain later. Right now, listen up." Reeves pulled a tactical map from the TOC wreckage. His mind shifted into a mode he hadn't accessed in 15 years. Range assessment, threat evaluation, resource allocation. He could see the battle clearly. The enemy had breached in 3 locations, north, east, and south gates. Each breach had approximately 50 fighters. Their goal was to push to the center of the base and destroy critical infrastructure. "All units, listen carefully. The enemy is using a 3-pronged assault. They want us to collapse to the center. We're not going to do that. Here's what we're doing instead." He laid out the defense in clear, rapid instructions. "Alpha Company, you're holding the north breach. Don't try to push them back. Just contain. Make them pay for every meter. Bravo Company, shift half your force to reinforce the east. The rest support Alpha's flank. Charlie Company, you're our reserve. Position behind the command center. When I call, you counterattack. Weapons platoons, I need your heavy machine guns on these coordinates." He rattled off grid positions with perfect precision. "Suppressive fire. Make them think twice about advancing." The companies executed immediately. because the voice giving orders wasn't a chaplain's anymore. It was a combat commander's, someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Over the next hour, Reeves coordinated the defense like he was back in Fallujah. He called in artillery strikes on enemy staging areas outside the wire, repositioned squad automatic weapons for overlapping fields of fire, directed medevac priorities to keep the aid station from being overwhelmed. When the East Gate faltered, he personally led a reinforcement squad to the position, fired his sidearm in close quarters combat, killed the enemy fighters who breached the inner perimeter, then returned to command, voice still calm, still tactical. Lieutenant Chen saw him during the fighting, saw the way he moved, the way he gave orders, the precision, the calm. This wasn't a chaplain pretending to be a soldier. This was a warrior who'd been wearing chaplain vestments at 01 for 5 hours. The tide turned. The enemy's assault began to falter. Reeves sensed it immediately. Charlie Company, execute counterattack now. Push through the south gate. Drive them back outside the wire. Charlie Company surged forward. Fresh troops against exhausted attackers. The enemy broke, retreated, left their dead and wounded behind. By 03:30 hours, the attack was over. The base was secure. 800 soldiers had survived because someone had coordinated a defense that turned chaos into discipline. The after-action debrief happened at dawn. Major Ross, the logistics officer who should have been in command, stood with the company commanders. Chaplain Reeves, I don't understand. How did you? Reeves pulled off his helmet. His face was streaked with dust and sweat. I was a Ranger, Major, Captain Michael Reeves, 75th Regiment. 7 years, 3 combat deployments. I know how to fight. The company commanders stared. Some had known Reeves for over a year. They'd never suspected. Captain Martinez spoke first. Sir, why didn't you ever tell anyone? Reeves looked at her. Because I left that life behind. I found God, found peace. I didn't want to be defined by what I used to do. But you saved us tonight. Tonight required the Ranger. Tomorrow, you need the chaplain again. Because the soldiers who fought tonight are going to need help processing what they've seen and done. That's my real calling now. Lieutenant Chen approached. Chaplain, you told me you'd been in combat, but you didn't say you were this. Reeves smiled slightly. Would it have helped you to know? Chen thought about it. Actually, yes. Knowing you've been scared and still led men through it, that did help. Reeves nodded. Then maybe I should have been more honest. I thought I could separate the two, the warrior and the chaplain, but maybe they're both part of who I am. In the weeks that followed, Chaplain Reeves went back to his normal duties, counseling, services, comfort. But something had changed. Soldiers who'd seen him command the defense looked at him differently. Not with less respect, with more, because they understood he'd walked both paths, violence and peace, destruction and healing, and he could speak to both. One evening, a young private came to his office, struggling with guilt over a kill he'd made during the attack. Chaplain, I shot someone. He was coming over the wall, and I killed him, and I don't know how to feel about it. Reeves listened, then spoke with the authority of someone who'd been there. You did your job. You protected your brothers. That's not something to feel guilty about, but it's also not something to celebrate. It's a burden you'll carry, and that burden is part of being human. He paused. I carried that burden for 7 years. Killed people I believed needed killing, then found I couldn't carry it alone anymore. Found I needed God to help me make sense of it. The private looked up. Does it ever get easier? No, but it becomes something you can live with, something that doesn't define you. The private left feeling understood in a way only someone who'd been there could provide. Months later, Chaplain Reeves stood in his quarters, looking at the footlocker where his old Ranger uniform was stored. He unlocked it, pulled out the uniform, the Ranger tab, the Combat Infantryman Badge, the deployment patches. He kept them hidden for years, ashamed of what they represented, wanting to be someone different. But now he understood. He wasn't running from who he'd been. He'd integrated it. The warrior and the chaplain weren't separate. They were the parts of the same calling. To protect, to serve. To help others survive the darkness, he carefully folded the uniform and placed it back in the footlocker. Not to hide it, but because he didn't need to wear it to remember. Captain Michael Reeves, the Ranger, had taught him how to lead in chaos. Chaplain Michael Reeves, the man of faith, had taught him how to heal in peace. And on the night FOB Caliban needed both, he'd been ready. Moral. You don't have to choose between who you were and who you've become. Your past experiences, even the hard ones, don't have to define you, but they can inform the person you choose to be. The warrior and the healer aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same person, serving in different ways. If this story moved you, don't forget to show your support. Subscribe to Acts of Veterans for more true tales of courage, sacrifice, and honor. Stories that remind us of the quiet strength carried by those who serve. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories reach. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the heroes among us.